So the issue of security is coming to the forefront at Westminster, with almost the obvious being stated that Tories are not taking their positions where, in some cases, they are in charge of national security seriously. We've had Liz Truss using personal phones. We've had a minister on air this morning being very weirded out by the fact that he can't use a personal phone, which means that, well, it's obvious. Most of these personal phones haven't even been vetted by the security services. As far as we know, all kinds of national secrets could have been leaked out to foreign governments, even in some cases, maybe enemy governments, in the case of what we've seen with Liz Truss revealed over the weekend after her phone had been hacked, explicitly regarding messages around Ukraine and the UK support of Ukraine. This is incredibly worrying. But of course, it gets even worse because this all goes back to the Suella Braverman example. Because it turns out, as we've learned this weekend, not only has she been sending, well, Home Office secrets back to her own right wing of the party, basically not only to get approval, but for them to have input. And from what we have seen, input that is on a staggeringly stupid scale. There is now going to be apparently a push by the right wing to try and force the UK even to not accept legitimate asylum seekers, to essentially force them to relocate outside of the UK, which goes against all kinds of international treaties, one even in particular going all the way back to 1951, not only of which Britain was an original signatory to, but also had a hand in creating the modern international asylum system. And it gets even worse. But before we get how to even worse this really is, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee. We can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. And of course, down below, there is the YouTube thank you button, as well as the YouTube subscription, where you can join the Pony Club and you get badges, emojis, and whatnot when you sign up to that. So, how much worse can it really be? We thought we had it bad under Theresa May, where she almost embodied the very characteristic of the child's catcher, of her running around trying to catch immigrants with a net. And then Priti Patel, who actually suggested that maybe we should be running around trying to catch immigrants with a net. But she had far more devastating consequences to the asylum system. One of Priti Patel's big points of hatred, of course, was against the lefty lawyers, those do-gooders, because they would come forward and fight for the rights of these asylum seekers using the very laws that the Tories are indeed trying to change, hence why they are so desperate to leave the European Court of Human Rights, which underpins so much of this asylum laws. And now it has gotten so bad, the funding of this system, which Suella Braverman seems to have continued, that it will now take one asylum seeker approximately 8 years for their entire application to be processed. 8 years of not knowing whether you will have a permanent asylum claim. And then what could happen after those 8 years? Maybe you might have a house, you might have a job, you might have a life in the UK, only to be told, sorry, you haven't got your asylum anymore. This just goes to show how bad the asylum system has become under the Tories. Through years of defunding, constant trying to create a labyrinthian system, trying to force people away. But that has shown time and time again that is not going to work. People want to come here. So we should fund the system to make sure that asylums can be processed quicker. But of course, that's not what has happened. And it gets even worse because under Suella Braverman, who has earned the moniker Cruella Braverman, it seems to be even worse. And as we said earlier at the start of this video, we have her and her right-wing colleagues trying to push an even more right-wing extreme version of trying to deny legitimate asylum seekers access to be able to live and work in the UK. That is one shocking thing, but it gets even worse. Because now we are learning that the very detention centres where these people would be initially maybe housed and kept, at least what the idea was for a short time, seems to have gotten to an absolutely unbelievable state, where even Tory MPs have come to inspect these centres to say that these conditions are completely unacceptable. And tomorrow, there is being a report released by the prisons inspector, Charlie Taylor, to say that these centres are just completely unacceptable and not fit for purpose, and that we could be walking into a potential disaster and a humanitarian one, and maybe even facing legal challenges to the government of cases which, according to some Home Office officials, they would lose automatically. And this is what Charlie Taylor had to say about this. So we are absolutely clear in our report that's coming out tomorrow that the Home Office and its contractors need to get a grip. They need to speed up the process for migrants, and they need to make suitable provisions so that people can be moved off site as quickly as possible and housed in humane and decent conditions. The facilities are not set up for people to be staying. It is not a residential facility. It is a short-term holding facility, which is supposed to process people through. So the danger is that people are spending long periods of time in what are very cramped conditions without suitable accommodation. That is just not acceptable. And even, as I said a few moments ago, Tory MPs are going to inspect these centres, and some have come back over the previous weekend and said, yeah, even I'm not comfortable with these conditions that we're putting asylum seekers in. Which, given how very often the rhetoric that comes out from the Tories is kind of surprising that for once in their lives, they are coming out on the side of asylum seekers. But that just goes to show you how bad the system has become. And it is one that is being created, I highly suspect, and a lot of people are saying today that it is being created on purpose by Cruella Braverman. Or Suella Braverman, I suppose you want. But, like I say, that is a moniker that she has well and truly earned. And you want to see why? Well, look at the state of the asylum system. 8 years to process just one application. Having to live in awful, horrid conditions, which, again, by our own prison inspectors, are saying it is not fit for purpose. And Tory MPs, who are normally very, very anti-immigrant, even anti-refugees, are coming out and saying, these places that we're putting in asylum seekers to process them, yeah, they're not really suitable. And tomorrow, that report is going to come out again and probably lead to even more pressure on Rishi Sunak to get rid of Suella Braverman. Will he finally relent? Will the pressure become too much? We don't know. But as we've said just today, Rishi Sunak is still in a very, very precarious position. Will his government come toppling down if you were to remove Suella Braverman? It's likely he will upset many, many other Tory MPs who certainly do support Suella Braverman, but he could easily replace her with someone else. We don't know. As we always said, why on earth, if you want right-wing support, would you put Suella Braverman in? Especially into a position where there is already a lot of pressure to get rid of her. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.